What up, nation? Welcome to another edition of the WiseTake NBA DFS Wise stream. CK013 here. You can find me on Twitter at CK_013, and I'm joined once again by the GOAT, the true OG that y'all know is Paulie D. You can find him on Twitter at Paulie with 8 Ds. Paulie booked another ticket last night to Screenshot City. It was good to see you. Another common night. It's been all in the NBA so far. Both of us, the MLB. Both of us have had more success in the MLB, but I think we're due. I think we're due for a good NBA day to stay hot, man. How you doing?
Yeah, doing great. I did win money in NBA yesterday too, actually, on top of the baseball. So that was nice. The baseball sweat was fucking like I was live to come in like top 3. It just didn't happen. But as it wasn't happening, and I fell back a few spots, the NBA came roaring forward and recouped a couple bucks that I had fallen off. NBA has been pretty
It has, man. The whole the whole we're waiting throughout the day for the lineups thing. We knew that was going to be irritating, but it's one thing to do it on one slate like Christmas. It's a whole other thing to have every single slate like that every single day. And then you have like motivation factors. The Lakers yesterday had no interest in winning that game. They played Anthony Davis like 30 something, like barely 30 minutes. It was more like just kind of showing face. They had no interest in winning the game. Meanwhile, the Rockets wanted to win that game, as they often do with D'Antoni. Kept Harden in there, more than they probably even had to, being as how the Lakers did kind of throw in some guys they didn't really care about. So I'm with you, but it's got to adapt.
indeed.
Adaptation for the nation. With that said, if you have come here, if you haven't hit the like button already, please hit the like button. Really goes a long way, helps us out, allows us to continue to do dirties on the YouTube and on the Twitch. So please subscribe, hit the notifications bell, and hit the like buttons. They really help us out. With that said, we are going to get into this one. Not going to waste too much time because for basketball, we seem to run a little longer than the other sports. We've got the Oklahoma City Thunder visiting the Memphis Grizzlies. It's our first game of the night, the only game that starts at 4 p.m. Eastern. We have a 221 total that's down from 224.5. The Thunder opened up -3. They're up to -3.5 currently. We did just hear that Steven Adams is ruled out. We know Schroeder is still not with the team. Paulie D, what you got for us here?
Yeah, so the Steven Adams hammer just dropped, and changes the slate quite a bit for me. There was 3 centers I really had my eye on in my core. They were going to be on 100% of my teams in different combinations, and now Nerlens Noel is the best play on the slate, and that changes things significantly. Play the shit out of Nerlens Noel. I'm probably just gonna go all in. Maybe I'll have like 1 or 2 teams without him, but he's been extremely reliable when getting the minutes. He's just one of those super high point per minute type players that usually doesn't play over 15 or 20 minutes. But when Adams is out, he usually gets between 30 and 35. And, against Memphis, a young, turnover-prone, blockable team with a couple bigs, so they're gonna need him out there. He just should get all the minutes he can handle, unless he gets into foul trouble, and that's really your only serious risk here. Play the shit out of Nerlens Noel, and then the rest of OKC is certainly very viable. They were already missing Schroeder, as you mentioned, and Shai Gilgeous is in the core. He's a phenomenal play. Chris Paul is a phenomenal play, and Danilo Gallinari is a phenomenal play. Those, I think, the whole industry will kind of be aware of and on, as well as Noel. But I also really like this Lou Dort kid that's kind of found his way into the starting role, playing over 30 minutes a game with decent usage. Like in the high teens, low 20s, and kind of contributing across most stat lines. Not really many assists, but with Adams out, those minutes should solidify even more, and the usage should increase. And he's only 3,500 as well. He doesn't have the ceiling that Noel has, but he's going to be probably 10, 15% owned, where Noel's going to be like 60% owned on a 5-game slate. So I like adding in Dort a lot. I'll probably have like 40% of him. And Hamidou Diallo, who's been playing minutes into the 20s, then we lose Adams, and this becomes a guy that they'll go to for scoring. He's been one of the best players on the court in summer league games, has a lot of athleticism, and Memphis, again, their up and down style is very like it's the kind of matchup that he would thrive in. So Hamidou Diallo, 3,200 on DraftKings, another guy that I'll be mixing into my player groups at about 20%, but gotta like a lot on this new OKC side.
100%, man. Memphis, one of the fastest paced teams in the game, and the points plus out of control. Every time a team plays Memphis, they seem to do well, at least somewhere. And on top of that, you add in the fact that OKC is now shorthanded. It does seem like a team that you're just gonna have to grab a lot of. I'm with you on Noel. It's hard to see a path to him not succeeding on FanDuel. He's power forward, which is pretty clutch. The only downside, or I guess the only path to where Noel is not in the winning lineup, is like Paulie said, we have a few good centers today, and if they just ceiling out and Noel only gets you a 30, then maybe you're raw points out if they were able to make up the difference of the salary at a different position. Other than that, it's hard to envision him not in the winning lineup, but again, that's the only takeaway. We have Embiid with no Simmons, we have Vooch with no Aaron Gordon, so there's a few centers out there that we'll talk about, and that's really the only reason that I don't think I'm going to go 100%, but I'll probably be around 80% on both sides. It's just hard. On FanDuel, maybe I will go 100 on FanDuel because the power forward. But on DraftKings,
power forward on
clutch,
FanDuel,
man,
wow.
Clutchington. On DraftKings, though, I think I'll leave, like you said, just a couple teams, anywhere from 80 to 90. Just not a full 100, because I can see a path, because we have so many good centers. I can see these centers being the highest scoring raw points on the slate, and you really needed to have 2 or 3 of them. You know what I mean?
That's what the strategy was before Noel. Right. I was like, man, Vooch, Joval, or Embiid are going to be 2 of the 3 high scores on the whole slate, and I wanted to double center it, which most people don't really do on DraftKings.
And now nobody will, because,
Yeah.
So.
Well, they will, but it'll be Noel.
Yeah, exactly.
Not the double
right.
spent up.
And for that reason, I think Noel's a great play, but for that reason, I will not go 100%. I'm going to leave myself with maybe like 20% room on DraftKings. On FanDuel, I might be 100% because he's power forward. On DraftKings, I may only put him at about 80 and just give myself a few teams to, like you said, just in case, a few teams to have like an Embiid and Vooch or throw in Joval, 2 of those 3 on the same team, and just hope that the highest raw points on the slate, or raw point scores on the slate. You mentioned Chris Paul. I think he's an awesome play at point guard today. I know his price is up, but again, no Adams, and now... Not to mention, this is a phenomenal spot for guards. So Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, one of my favorite plays on the slate yet again. And I like Chris Paul, not as much as Shai, but that's only because Shai's more expensive. Chris Paul's more expensive. Gallinari, I'll work him in too. The price is right. I could see him potentially having to bang it out at the 4 a little bit more. And so I think he'll get more rebounds. Maybe there's a clear path to him doing a little bit better than he's done recently. But yeah, this is a team you're going to want to load up on, starting with Noel, and then I think go to the guards and kind of work your way down. Paulie mentioned Dortz, who we've got currently projected for around 30 minutes. Extremely cheap value play, and he could be the guy, right? Like Paulie said, Dortz is the one that ends up going. Say he goes for 30 and Noel only went for 30. Yeah, Noel's great, but if the centers go for 40, 50, 60, then that's going to be the difference right there. So just something to keep in mind. Let's talk about the Memphis side, Paulie.
Yeah, Memphis side, now Joval's in a phenomenal spot. I liked him because his price was way too low for the usage without Triple J. But now you get rid of Adams, their main big presence, and Nerlens Noel, not known for his defense. Yeah, he'll block a couple shots, but he doesn't slow anybody down at all. And Joval, probably my favorite center at this point outside of Noel, where he was kind of like the third man, really liked Vooch and Embiid better. But with no Adams, that changes a lot. You got to get a little bit of Brandon Clark, with no Triple J again. He's got 50-point ceiling, as we've seen a few times already before. Minutes should be really secure. And again, they're playing a team with no side. So he's in line for a nice game. It's just, at his price compared to some of the other values, you might not need him kind of deal. But I'll have a little. And that's really all I got interested on this team.
Yeah, the Memphis side not as attractive to me either. John Morant's price is now up. OKC is a team that does emphasize defense a little bit more. I agree with Paulie that without guys like Adams on the court, their defense is going to suffer, but I think it's primarily the bigs. I like Brandon Clark again. I think he'll get some more run. He never seems to do well. Whenever Jaren Jackson's out, he never seems to do what everybody wants him to do. I guess it's a usage issue or he's just not aggressive. I'm not sure. But I'll go back to him a little bit. The price is still low on DraftKings. On FanDuel at 5.9 is a little ambitious, I think, based off what we've seen. But if he's going to be matched up with like Gallinari and these motherfuckers, like, he's way too athletic to be matched up with those kind of people. So I could see a path to him succeeding as well. And he may get some 5 minutes with Jovel off the court, which like Paulie said, we're trying to attack OKC with the bigs now that there's no Adams down low. So he's my favorite. I'm sorry, him and Jovel, I should say, are my two favorites. Completely forgot to mention Jovel, but you covered him. Those are really the only two. I'm not terribly interested in the rest. I'm not going to waste a ton of time talking about them either. We got other games to get to. We've got the Sacramento Kings visiting the Brooklyn Nets. We have a 231.5 total, up from 231. The Kings opened up -4. They are up to -5. Paulie D, talk to me about Sacramento.
Yeah, so a couple question marks here. Rayshawn Holmes and Kent Bazemore got downgraded to questionable. Usually, a downgrade this close to lock usually points to guys likely not playing. If that's the case, we'd have a glaring hole at center with the Kings. Harry Giles could fill it, or Alex Len, who just returned and played pretty well and, could be as good a value play as Nerlens Noel if he's going to start and get X amount of minutes. We just don't know that as of yet. He is min-priced, though, and that's something to keep your eye on as we get closer to lock. They lock at 5, so it'll be post the main lock. Yesterday, I mentioned in my article, Boban got announced a starter like 10 minutes before they tipped off. Came out the gate with 9 quick points in the first 7 minutes. I was like, this is going to be 10x easy. And I think he got hurt or something because he never came back in. He didn't start the second half. And it ended up dudding, but he was 7%. That could have been a slate breaking, play if he didn't stop getting the minutes. So a guy like Alex Len could emerge as a really nice play. We find out he's starting and what's his name is out. So Rayshawn Holmes, right? So and if Bazemore's out, that just kind of strengthens Buddy Hield, Bogdanovich, and De'Aaron Fox's role usage, etc. If Holmes is also out, then Bielitsa most likely would see a boost in minutes and usage. So it's if Holmes and Bazemore play, then I'm really only kind of interested in like Bojan Bogdanovich and De'Aaron Fox. If Holmes and Bazemore are ruled out, then it's a wait and see between Giles and Len or both, and everyone would become just slightly more appealing on top of that.
Yeah, it's an interesting game. Brooklyn, they've kind of like given up on thinking they're going to be any kind of contender, right? And the Kings are working hard, but they did just play yesterday in a very fast-paced game against New Orleans. It was a day game, so they got a little extra rest. But some of these guys, like De'Aaron Fox, played like 37 minutes. Bogdanovich played like 37 minutes. So I wouldn't be surprised. We know Luke Walton. He's not a guy that typically likes to wear his guys down. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some weird shit with the minutes. But if Holmes and Bazemore are out, they're not really going to have a choice. Buddy Hield played like 17 minutes last night. I could see him all of a sudden just getting some extra run. I think that in the long run, I'm cool with taking these Kings, but I'm reluctant to go too heavy on any of them. I think I kind of capped them all at around 20 to 30%, with De'Aaron Fox being my favorite because he seems to have a more of a solidified role. But if we get Rayshawn Holmes out and Kent Bazemore out, I'm going to have to raise that and really analyze who we want to go with. I do think that would be a boost to Buddy Hield, and they kind of have no choice but to play their guys the minutes. So I'm with you on that. The Kings are always like a game stack team. Like they're really the only team that I'm always looking at game stack if I like them. If they're in a good spot, which they are today, I'm always looking to game stack them because their prices are all reasonable. It's always, and it's the case again today. So pay attention to the news. Anything that happens in this game, you will come in at lower ownership than anything that happened in the earlier game because people don't want to wait. So just keep that in the back of your mind. I do like the Aaron Fox quite a bit. Let's go over to the Brooklyn side of the ball with Jared Allen, who's also questionable.
Yeah, Jared Allen and Joe Harris both questionable. And we already saw the Nets kind of rest them 2 games ago. I'd be really surprised to see them play. They really have nothing to play for. They are not going to go deep in the playoffs with the current roster. And, just like they gave them the rest that game, with little injuries, I just don't see any reason why they would push them to play the meaningless game for them. So I expect them to miss, which really solidifies Karis LeVert's usage. He's been a little bit, little variant. The range of outcomes with him can be kind of high because he can go for 60, but he can also have an off day shooting, and the game gets out of hand, and he doesn't really close, and ends up with 25 minutes and 30 DraftKings points. But with all those guys out, his price decreased down to 71. Got a lot of interest and um, fewer paths to failure. Rodoins Kuroix, if Allen's out, probably would start and see enough minutes to kind of do damage at his cheap price tag of 3,900. After that, I don't really have much interest in anyone else out there. I mean, there's probably an argument to be made for 1 or 2 other Nets, but when measured against the other players on the rest of the slate, I just don't think you're going to end up really needing them.
Yep, I agree. Unless we get some major injuries, and even if we do, I mean, there was that game where Brooklyn sat everybody, and they still had a hard time hitting value. A lot of the guys out there. So
And they beat the Bucks
yeah, and
that
they
day,
won,
which
was just insane. They fucking beat the Bucks. Now, granted, the Bucks didn't play Giannis or Middleton in the second half, but still, they won the game, and there still just wasn't a lot of good fantasy value on the team. So I'm with you. I'm a little reluctant to go on anyone. It's Karis LeVert. If Allen were to play, I think he's an interesting guy to work in. I just don't know how much I could really put him over the other guys that we have. We know the Kings are also bad against bigs. We just have some really good centers. It's either at the bottom with Noel or all the way to the top with Embiid and the Vooches and Joval. So it's a great spot for him if he does play. But I don't know I just don't think he's quite as good as those other dudes. But certainly an option. But Karis LeVert's the main one. DraftKings 7-1. Karis LeVert just seems way too cheap. I know he's been a little consistent, but the usage has been there, right? Usage has been there, like Paulie said. Let's keep things rolling to the next game. We got the Orlando Magic visiting the Philadelphia. Oh, I keep fucking saying it. Anyway, Orlando Magic and the Philadelphia 76ers. We've got a 222.5 total. Sixers opened up -4. They're up to -5. We'll start with the Magic side of the ball. We know Aaron Gordon, Jonathan Isaac, Michael Carter-Williams have all been ruled out. What do you got, Paul?
Yeah, both these teams just suffered significant injuries. Aaron Gordon is going to open up a lot of usage. Making Vooch just a phenomenal play. And I think it also makes a guy like Evan Fournier on the starting unit that much better of a play at 5'3", a really nice mid-tier play. Guys like Terence Ross, Markelle Fultz, James Ennis should see increased minutes, increased usage with all those guys out. None of them really jump off the page. I would say Terence Ross has significantly the highest ceiling out of that group, so mix him into your teams. But Vucevic, Fournier, the two I got my eye on. I think Kem Birch and Mo Bamba are interesting plays. If I was building like 150 teams, I would definitely mix them in. But we don't know like how many minutes they're going to play, if any changes for them with Gordon missing the last game. It really seemed like Enos and Iwundu were the two that really benefited the most. So they're risky, very risky, and probably don't get enough minutes to really be slate breaking type plays, even if they do get some traction. But if one of them gets bumped to the starting lineup or something, then that would be cause for concern.
For sure. Just gonna check the Slack real quick because I'm here. I'm seeing a lot of people in the YouTube chat saying Allen was ruled in, so I'm gonna check our Slack chat real quick.
Jared Allen?
Yeah. I'm here. Joe Harris available to play. Jared Allen available to play. Shout out to the nation. We did get that information. So, but both of those players are in. So back what we said about Brooklyn. Pretty much. Not really a ton has changed.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would say that you don't need as much Harris LeVert. He's still a nice play, but he's not the lock with those guys out that that he would have been if they were, and he's going to be really, really chalky. So, like, I would say you could lower some exposure on him, and like everyone may just forget to play Jared Allen now that he's ruled in because everyone was assuming he'd be out, and he's like the only center they got. So, add him into the player pool.
$1 for $1. Nation, hit that like button if you haven't already. See a bunch of you piled in. Much appreciated. Please hit that like button. It really helps us out. Really goes a long way and allows us to do dirties on the YouTube and Twitch. With the Magic side, pretty much everything you just nailed. I think Fournier and Ross, unless you're doing a game stack, I set a rule to play one of them, but you feel like one of them is going to step up and take more shots. Well, they're both going to take more shots. Which one's going to have the efficient game? That's the question. Vooch is the favorite, right? The best play in the Magic right now with no Aaron Gordon. He's had success against Philly, a little bit of a revenge narrative there for him. He likes to do the dirty to Philly. Embiid, as big as he is, not really known for his perimeter defense, which is where Vooch really likes to play, really comfortable out there. DJ Augustine's been getting minutes. He's still cheap, especially on FanDuel, but you also have Kemba Walker over there, who we'll talk about, is like 4,800 on FanDuel. James Ennis, a value play that Paul had mentioned. Just another, if you want to punt somewhere else other than the center position with Noel on DraftKings, he's certainly an option, but just not really a big ceiling guy. Can he get you a 30? Absolutely he could. That's probably the most he can get you, but it's possible. And you still got Wesawundu and Kem Birch. All these guys are going to split some minutes with him. So I'm cool with grabbing some Magic, but Vooch is the main one that I'm making a priority. On DraftKings, I think Fournier and Ross are a little easier to play over there because they do take a lot of three-pointers. You get the extra bonuses for three-pointers there. So, and it's not taken away from anyone else that you may like at the position. What about the Philly side?
So just like we said, Vooch is in a better play because Gordon's not out. Embiid is a phenomenal play with no Ben Simmons, a guy who would steal quite a few rebounds away from him, a couple blocks, a couple shots, a couple assists. Embiid should be the main benefactor from that. They want to win. They, should let Embiid kind of do the dirty. And they don't really have anyone else that's that much of an offensive threat. So this could be a major ceiling game for Embiid. He's the only guy on the slate above 10K. And, if he does go ham, he could outscore the next closest guy by 20, and he'll be a must-have on this slate. Before all this shit happened with now Jared Allen's in the pool and Nerlens Noel, potentially Alex Glenn, I was going to go minimum 50% on Embiid and kind of split the pairings with Joval and Vooch. Now there's a couple more bodies to consider, but Embiid still has by far the highest ceiling on the slate, and a guy you just got to have some exposure to in case he does. And, then there's a couple other guys on Philly, like Josh Richardson, that just seems too cheap, who's going to have an increased role against a team like Orlando, where there are going to be some turnovers as more and more of their starters aren't around. Tobias Harris also has vengeance against Orlando after they gave up on him and traded him away. He's done well against him in the past. No Isaac to guard him, and he's a little pricey, but the guy that's going to be low owned and definitely worth looking at today. Jake Milton, I got a little bit of interest in, and that's essentially it. Just a whole lot of Embiid, and I do like Josh Rich and Tobias.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Embiid is I think he's the most expensive player on both sites, rightfully so. He's in a phenomenal spot. Vooch not known for his defense at all, inside or outside. Embiid could really have his way as long as Orlando sticks around, which I don't see why they wouldn't. We have a significant injury on Philly as well. Tobias Harris would be my next favorite. On DraftKings, the price is high, so I'm not making it a priority to get him in. I want to work him in, but it's not like a priority necessarily. On FanDuel at 6.8, that's just too cheap for the situation. Paulie mentioned the revenge, which we like to chase in NBA. Al Horford's really cheap on FanDuel. Don't think I want any of that still. Definitely not interested on DraftKings. Shake Milton, like you said, Paulie, should get some run. More of a FanDuel thing, I think, at 4.7. I do think Josh Richardson's going to get more time to kind of play point guard. I don't necessarily think his usage is going to be crazy high, but I think he'll get more opportunities to run the ball and pick up a lot of point guard minutes. So it's mainly Tobias and Embiid as my main two. I'm okay with some J-Rich, but it's mainly Embiid number 1, Tobias number 2, and then I'm looking on to different teams and greener pastures. We're going to move on here to the next game, which is the Washington Wizards and the Nolans Pelicans. We got a 236 total, up from 234.5. The Pelicans opened up -7. They're up to -8, and that's with Zion Williamson getting ruled out for rest. Paulie talked to me about Washington, a team that maybe shouldn't have made the bubble if they weren't going to bring Beal.
And even if they were, the team just doesn't have enough quite yet.
I would have rather have seen the Hawks in that spot.
Yeah,
honestly.
Yeah, agree. Yeah, New Orleans needs to win. If they lose, I think they become mathematically ruled out, or if not mathematically ruled out, on the brink of that. Ruling out Zion kind of makes me think that they've given up, which concerns me with who they're going to play. Like, we saw Utah start, rest all their starters today on a whim. We could see teams do that, but right now we just know that Zion's out. And, Brandon Ingram's probably Brandon Ingram and what's his name? Lonzo Ball are my two favorite guys on New Orleans. I don't think either will be that popular just because of these other guys on the slate that, someone being out has really opened up. Like Zion really hadn't been playing enough yet to where him being ruled out is going to make a ton of impact. But against Washington, this is by far the highest ceiling potential score game on the slate. And I think you're going to get Lonzo and Ingram, significantly lower owned than other players in their price range. I like the shit out of both of them, especially with no Zion. What's his name? Holiday just feels a little too expensive and doesn't do enough of the peripherals to really ceiling out at that price tag. 93 is just a little rough. He'll probably be low owned, so mix him in, again, as this is one of the better games. And, there's probably going to be a flyer play on New Orleans, like Nicolo Melli or Jackson Hayes or Josh Hart that does well. But I just think we got better value spots across the slate that I'm not really looking to get more than 5% of any of them.
Real quick, we did just get some breaking news. Anthony Toliver is going to start ahead of Brandon Clark on Memphis. I think that's good for Clark. I honestly think he's never done well in a starting role. I think that's got to be good for him because he seems to thrive on that second unit, and he's going to get more time on the court without Joe Val, you would think. So I personally think it's better for him. I mean, it's harder to go 80% or whatever. If somebody was considering that, it's harder to do that. But I think from a tournament standpoint, number one, I think his ownership lowers a little bit because it's a loaded position. We have other value on the slate, and now he's not starting. And number two, I think it's actually better for him from a usage standpoint. Any input on the Clark to the bench?
I concur with everything you say. I'm just not that interested in him overall, 20%. No more.
For sure. We're gonna keep things rolling. I thought you mentioned the New Orleans side, right?
Yeah, Ingram and Lonzo, and I mentioned there may be a breakout value play out of that group of guys, but they just don't strike me as appealing as Noel's and Len's and whoever else we've talked about.
Yeah, I agree. Without Zion, Ingram is the guy. Similarly to Tobias, they priced Ingram up. He's in an extended role. He deserves to have a price like this. On FanDuel, 7.5 just seems like a gimme. It just seems like a steal at this point against Washington. There is some blowout risk. Washington's pretty damn bad, especially without Beal. Drew Holiday, there's a big price discrepancy. 7.7 on FanDuel, 9.3 on DraftKings. I don't think he'll have very much ownership at all on DraftKings, and it's hard for me to say to play him at 9.3. I personally am playing him a lot more on FanDuel at 7.7. There is merit to the fact that he will be low owned on DraftKings. It was kind of the same thing yesterday. So many people. Well, first of all, Anthony Davis wasn't even that popular, which like I felt like a fish because I played the shit out of him, and it seemed like a lot of the field, you know. But it is what it is. But Damian Lillard was obviously that one. It was the double guard. I think people were hesitant to play him. We had talked about how his matchup without Jamal Murray, without Gary Harris, and all those guys had gotten a lot better than people may have realized. And he kind of went out and did dirties all over Denver's face.
Dude, Dame is top 5 player in the NBA. No one knows
No doubt. So Holiday, like I said, I'll get more of my exposure to him on FanDuel. I'll get some on DraftKings simply because this is a good matchup and Zion's out. We've seen games where Ingram has struggled and then Drew Holiday had to pick up the slack. But I do think, to Paulie's point, you can just kind of settle for the middle ground, go with Alonzo Ball in a good matchup also. Triple-double upside, which is more of a DraftKings thing, but still there. Derek Favors should get more time playing the center position. He's 5,200 on both sites. Hard to work him in with the loaded center position options that we have, and you're never really sure with Favors. You're never really sure with his minutes, with his usage, anything. But in the past, we've really only been able to play him when somebody was out, particularly Zion recently. But that's kind of where I'm at. The other guys, Nicolo Melli, these are all guys you can work in. It's just, again, it's hard to get too excited about them when you got Nerlens Noel and some of the other guys we talked about because of injury. What about the Washington side, Paulie?
Yeah, Washington's always attractive, especially in this matchup. But no one is like direly important, or direly that attractive. Or, like they're all kind of like, nice plays. There's nothing that making any one of them kind of like shoot out past the others. I think Troy Brown's still too cheap. I think I'm going to continue to kind of attack Rui Hatch over Thomas Bryant as he'll be significantly higher owned and is significantly higher priced now. I think Rui's a very similar type player and going to have his ceiling games as well. Ish Smith's still worth a look. You could take a stab at a Shabazz Napier. Isaac Bonga's just going to be a decent value play every day. It's a small slate. There's a chance that he's in the top 5 of value plays out there. But Rui's my favorite. Troy Brown, then Thomas Bryant. Not really that into the Washington side, though, as a whole. With maybe I should be more into, but I don't know. What do you think? You're on mute. Yo.
Bro, I told you I had a phone. Go.
Yeah, my bad. CK's, he was on hold with Expedia for 2 hours. So we'll move on to the next game. Final game of the night, Boston and Toronto. Interesting situation here with Boston. Kemba Walker, they kind of keep increasing his minutes limit. I'm hearing it's about around 30 to 32 today. That's basically a full game for him. His price is way down on FanDuel. And, they want him to kind of be in like mid-season form as they roll into the playoffs because he's going to be a vital part. I would get most of my exposure on FanDuel. On DraftKings, he's a nice piece. But not vital. You know what I mean? So I'd be using him on FanDuel. This looks like a nice game to stack, as long as both teams are going to put out full effort, and they don't have a ton of history. These two teams, they haven't met in the playoffs much or anything like that, but they certainly know that they could, and they're probably the two best teams in the East. Because everyone knows Milwaukee's just a regular season team and going to get beat in the playoffs as they do every year until they get some shooters. That team's just going to continue to struggle. So these are the two teams that really have a shot to win the championship out of the East, if any of them really have a shot. Against those good teams in the West. But so Jalen Brown, Tatum, Gordon Hayward, Daniel Tice, they're all kind of nice. This game really makes sense to me as a game stack. On Toronto, Ciaco is their bona fide star right now. He's the guy I want to get the most exposure to. Marc Gasol's cheap, but we're loaded at center. I'm just not going to be able to get there. OG, I think, is a nice play. They're going to want him on the court to guard Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown as much as possible. So I think he gets big minutes, and we've seen he can go for 40s and 50s. Fred VanVleet seems a little too priced up. So does Kyle Lowry, but I would include them in game stacks and probably not as one-off plays. I can't see CK, so if you're done, just say something. Otherwise, I'll just roll into something else. Yeah, all right. So he's still doing his dirty. All right, let me jump into the YouTube chat. I'll see if there's any questions. I didn't have none of this prepared though, because I am a slacker. But never fear, I'm already in there. Yeah, throw some questions my way, so I don't have to struggle to think of things to say. Travis Threat says, Paulie, how do you feel about Josh Richardson? I feel very good about Josh Richardson. I like him quite a bit. I think he could significantly exceed his price at $5K with Ben Simmons out. Like him quite a bit. What else? Uchimaptai says, favorite Raptors players, it's going to be Ciaco and OG. Yeah, Siakam and OG. What else you guys got? Ibaka's all right. He really seems to have kind of lost 10-15% of his minutes. But that's about all that I know. I haven't really seen him kind of go nuts yet. I haven't seen him get enough minutes to go nuts. So, not really that interested. You know what I mean? Stand by one sec, guys. I'll be right back.
Wow. Stay on hold for 2 hours just to be told you can't be helped. That's Expedia for your ass right there. So I'm sure Paulie covered the it's funny too because I was waiting the whole show to hear Paulie's Toronto take. This game in general because it should be a competitive game, right? We got two playoff contenders in the East, but on FanDuel, a lot of the Boston guys, the pricing is just right. Kemba Walker's 4,800 on FanDuel. Jalen Brown is 6K. Gordon Hayward is 5'9". Even Jason Tatum is 7,500. Now, I know Tatum's not a guy we typically love to play when Kemba's around. And Kemba, in his last game, he did play 29 minutes, or I think they sat him the last game. But anyway, he's cleared to go. Maybe not 35, but he's cleared to go around 30. So on FanDuel, I found myself getting a lot more Boston. These are two pretty good defensive teams. The Toronto side was the side that I had a hard time really getting behind players. Siakam's kind of been a disappointment to me overall. We all thought when Kawhi was gone that Siakam was going to come and have these 60 burgers every day. And that really hasn't been the case. He's been priced for 60 burgers. He just doesn't seem to hit it as often as you'd like. To me, the most impressive Toronto player has been Fred VanVleet. And the issue with him is his price has finally caught up to him. They've raised him up a little bit there. So for me personally, there wasn't a ton on the Toronto side that I loved. Some guys I'll play some Kyle Lowry, I'll play some of these options, but there's not a ton that I really fell in love with. I definitely preferred the Boston side a little bit more. I know Paulie was in there answering some questions. So let me see what we can do in here as we start to get these lineups in here. Ooh. Ooh. Let me see here. Marcus Smart or Dylan Brooks over on FanDuel. I would have to say at this point, I'd probably say Brooks because, in my opinion, Jaren Jackson Jr. is out, so there's still some leeway. And Brooks' usage rate has looked awesome in the restart. With Kemba Walker expected to play bigger minutes, that would be my concern. With Marcus Smart, as I do expect Kemba to get more minutes back, which I think will in turn lower the usage for Marcus Smart. 1 second. Boom, holla. So I'm not sure where you left off. I just covered my own little Boston Toronto and I answered one question.
I just kind of finished that and then started answering questions, and then like my Skype froze. I think I had answered the Josh Richardson question from Travis. Muchimata asked me about the Raptors, Ibaka. Then he said, no, Al Horford. I really don't have interest in Al Horford. I got to see him play well first. But, if you want to get a couple shares of him, that's fine. Week 3 says, which value player has the best chance to 8-10x this slate? I would say definitely Nerlens Noel. Probably I like Luguentz Dortz to do that as well. If Rayshawn Holmes gets ruled out for the Sacramento Kings, then Alex Len or what's my guy's name? What's his name? The other big it's with an H.
Which team?
Sacramento.
Holmes.
Yeah, if Holmes is out,
Harry
then
Giles.
one of Holmes like an elite play. We'll see who gets the starting lineups if Holmes is out or Bielitsa. But definitely Nerlens Noel. I like Luguentz Dortz to get there. Brandon Clark is certainly a candidate. Those are probably my 3 favorite. Josh Richardson, I don't think he's got 8-10, but candidate to be in the top 5 or 10 of the value plays. And I like Bogdan Bogdanovic. I like Hamidou Diallo. A lot of them seem to be from OKC. Next question was, do you like Marcus Smart or Dylan Brooks over on FanDuel? Not really. Like, Dylan Brooks.
I answered that question, but I thought he was asking me to pick one.
I like Dylan Brooks is more of a DraftKings only play for me. Because of the 3-point bonus, and that's mainly what he does. Marcus Smart is a good FanDuel play because he could have 4 or 5 steals and a couple blocks in a game. So I would say Smart, but I don't really like either of them that much. Jalen Brown or Ciaco. I think there's like $1,000 difference between the two, but it's gonna always be Siakam. I don't see myself ever picking Brown over him. Siakam, the best player on that team, and an all-star, potentially an all-star starter in the East. Like Jalen Brown, is a nice player, but not at that level.
Yeah, you answered the. I know you answered the Smart Brooks. If you had to pick one, you said it was Smart.
Yeah, especially on.
It's funny because I actually went with Brooks, and the reason for that is because we've got Jaren Jackson Jr. out. Meanwhile, in Boston, we're expecting Kemba to get a little closer to full run. So from a usage standpoint, I felt like Brooks has a little bit more of a boost than Smart. Not to mention Brooks' usage rate has looked really good over in the restart. The problem is that he's just not a peripheral guy. So he's kind of like Terence Ross. Either if he's not making the shots, he'll never get you more than 20 DraftKings points. But I do think it's very close, those two players, because Marcus Smart may not score a ton all the time, but he can get you steals. He can get you blocks. He'll get some assists. He'll get some rebounds. So I was curious to hear your answer because I did think that was a really good question.
Memphis has been playing that kid out of Duke quite a bit.
Grayson Allen.
I feel like Grayson Allen. I feel like it's taken away from Brooks's ceiling. Like earlier in the season, he did have a couple like 35, 40-point DraftKings games, and like he was taking 15 to 20 shots. And I honestly didn't notice his usage being that high, but I really wasn't looking. He's kind of if he gets down below 4,500, I'll start to be a buyer on him. But I don't know. I don't think he's got, like, if you ran the slate 100 times, I don't think more than 10 is he going higher than like 6x.
Fair enough. I think that's fair. Let's see if we have anything else in there. You already answered Jalen Brown and Ciaco. I think that's going to do it for us. So we're going to get out of here. We got about 10 minutes to finalize your teams, at least for the first game. We'll be back for the MLB stream at about 6 p.m. Eastern. Talk some baseball, which has just been on fucking fire. So anybody who has been playing baseball, you got to come check out the show and figure this out, because we have just been on fire with the baseball stuff. Comic clubs every night. Giving out tickets to Screenshot City, so make sure you're a part of that. Hit that like button, guys, and subscribe to the channel. Paulie, anything in closing before we get out of here?
Oh, good luck. Do that dirty, and like CK said, jump on the hoops train, because it is chewing.
Chewing. For Paulie D, for myself, the entire WiseTake Nation, as always, good luck.
Yeah.